Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. I am Remy Stern. I'm a relationship coach, and we are going to talk all things relationships, from being single to dating to being engaged, married. Who you marry is the most important decision you will ever make.
If you're looking for a wife, which is a beautiful thing to do, the best thing to do is to choose wisely.
If you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Everybody else has it right. Then you are in the right place, because trust me, nobody knows what they're doing. I'm so excited. Please hop right in, listen to this episode, listen to this series, and we are so excited that you are joining us here. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode with Jackie Glaser. She is a dating coach, and she helps so many women actually create the change that they want in their life. And we talk about how to take your hardest times in your life, your biggest challenges, and make them your greatest opportunity for growth, and to take rejection. And we all can experience rejection at some points in our life, but to allow it to be redirection into the direction of what is best for our highest self. And we talk about how to accept all aspects of your life, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and turn all of it into this incredible upward spiral so that you can accept the love and the life and everything you desire into your life. So hop right in. It's such a fun conversation, and I can't wait for you to experience it. We're so happy to have Jackie Glaser here on You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. We just already had this incredible conversation outside. We couldn't stop. We're like, wait for the podcast. But clearly we have so much to say. So I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Jackie, just welcome. We're so happy. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What you do, your incredible, powerful voice in this community. So we'd love to hear what that's about.
Yeah, thanks, Remy. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I am a dating coach now, but backtrack is that I came into this because I made a deal with God when I was single. And I was single for a very, 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 very long time. I got married in my 40s, and was not my plan, and it was very hard, and it was
it's not that late. Am I crazy? I feel like
it's late if you didn't want to get married in your 40s. Like if you wanted to get married in your late 20s, 30s, then it's a long time, right? Yes. So that's probably where I was at. It felt, and it really was. I was dating for decades of not wanting to be dating. I'm sure there's many out there listening who are in the same boat where they want to be, in a like either a long-term, lifelong relationship or married, and it's not happening. So I made deals with God, and I said, if you get me married, I'll work with singles. And I was a psychologist at the time, so I really felt I had what to give in that area. And when I got married, which is a crazy story, separate story, I did a class like online Zoom with the partnering organizations in dating called "There's Nothing Wrong with You" for singles. And hundreds of singles showed up. And I realized, whoa, that's interesting, because we hardly advertised. And then halfway through, everyone was turning off their cameras. And they contacted me afterwards on email and said, I'm sorry, I was turning off my camera. 30 people individually emailed me afterwards saying I was bawling because no one speaks to us this way. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is such a need here for this. And what is this? This is speaking about dating, about the journey of dating, about how to pick the right husband, wife, whatever it is, with empowerment rather than there's something wrong with you. There's such a premise that there's something intrinsically wrong with you if you're single. And it is horrible and disgusting and soul destroying and self-worth breaking. And then how on earth do you date from a place when you have low self-worth? So then it fuels itself, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. So I was like, this is terrible. And then there's all this judgment from people, again, depending on which circles you're walking in, but it more so, as you go into different circles where that's a high value. So wherever there's a community that's a high value to get married, traditional, observant, Jewish, any kind of religious, whatever. There's lots of people that value marriage. So then if you're not married, you're not living that value. So there's some judgment that comes with that.
Yep.
And that's really just not my view, having gone through it.
Uh-huh.
It's that you have your journey that's designed for you to become your best potential. And there is a higher power that is helping guiding that journey and creating that journey for you. And if you're doing everything you can, meaning is it possible to be standing in your own way and blocking that? 100%. It is. As you know, as a coach, we see this all the time. People self-sabotage, they get in their own way. We can go into that later in the podcast. But that on its own is not the reason to be judging someone. And if you're a single and you're doing that inner work in a real way, and we're going to talk about what that inner work really should be, and how there's a lot of people out there who are in roles of therapists and coaches that might be well-meaning, but they don't really help people. They're nice, but it's not so helpful. And I have a lot of them in my clients in my course right now who've said they got a lot of help and it was useful to a degree, but they still feel the same way. So, but if you're doing the inner work and you're doing what you can and it's not happening, it's not your fault.
Yep. No,
it's like you have to give yourself a break and look at yourself with compassion. So I think the first step is being able to look at yourself with compassion.
Yeah. And it's actually like for your highest good. Like it's not happening right now. Not because there's anything wrong with you, actually quite the opposite, for your highest good. I've heard you say before, and we'll get to your story in a second, of your husband was married. He seems like a fantastic guy. Yeah. So yes, Hashem, the universe was saving you. Nothing was wrong with you. They were saving you from marrying the guy who's not your Basharid. And I have so many questions. I actually want to throw out there. It's funny because when I met you, when our paths crossed, you were helping already, thank God, a lot of women. And we have a similar story in a sense. I want you to tell your story a little bit as well, where we both were raised not connected to Judaism just because it wasn't presented to us, right? So it's part of my story. And I discovered it when I went to college, and it led me, I met this rabbi, and it led me to this program, Mayor Manhattan, in Israel. It took us for a summer. And I remember seeing you and hearing your speech after being like, whoa, there's something to this thing called Judaism. Like I had all of these spiritual practices that I was introduced to at a young age, but Judaism just gave it more structure and answers, for lack of a better. It gave me it was like, oh, if you do this happens. And like in a marriage, if you have a third thing holding two people who are different and everything together, there's something that keeps you together. That makes perfect sense. And so anyways, I met you, and we have similar stories. You also have that, in a time where I was lost and broken and defeated, and I was single, and I was doing all the things. I had my therapist, like we said. I had I was going to programs, and I was like, I'm doing the work, and I'm trying to connect, and what the heck, universe, God, where are you? Like, I'm doing everything right. Why are you not answering my prayers, quote unquote? And that is my favorite time in my life, actually. I mean, obviously my daughter is, but that time where I was like, I hit that quote unquote rock bottom and met my life coach and was able to turn it around and really experience a downward cycle becoming an upward cycle. And the last thing I'll say before I turn to you to ask a question is, it's so funny you say this, but in one of our episodes 2 weeks ago, I read Jonathan my journal of Rosh Hashanah the year before I met him. And I say, I have never felt this low. I can't imagine a guy liking me. I can't imagine a guy saying to me, you're beautiful and sweet. And I just I feel so unworthy and unloved type of thing. And I was like, and I want to find a guy to like me so that I feel good about myself, because I don't feel good about myself. So guys aren't liking me. So it was this very toxic downward spiral. And I then did the work with the universe and Hashem's help. I met somebody to help me do the work. 6 weeks later, I met Jonathan. And again, I have my story of when I met him, but I want to know,
that's crazy.
From your story, was there something that you feel like you did different, or an energy that you felt right before you met your husband that kind of shifted the story for you? Or
yes.
was it so?
Yes,
so
it was crazy. That? And not only that, but that's what I see, so my clients now, when they're changing internally, I had 4 in the last month in the middle of the program that I run, their husbands walked into their life in the middle of the program.
I see it a lot too.
It's insane.
It's incredible.
I'm always in awe. And I think that, meaning how powerful our inner world is to impact our external world. That's always the magic for me, is seeing that connection. And so that was what happened for me. And I guess if I had to put down to one word of what changed before I met my husband, it was surrender.
Tell us more.
Yeah, it was surrender.
How did you surrender?
And I want to make a disclaimer that was my story. And I don't believe my story is every single person's story. Like, I don't believe my test and my journey is what everyone needs to do to be able to, get married. But for me, that was best for me in my journey, for my potential in general. Rather, it wasn't about this is what was holding me back from getting married. Because as I said, you said before, most of my dating life, my husband was married. All right. We were waiting for his divorce, basically, but we didn't know it. And all these other well-meaning people giving me lots of criticism and lots of judgment and especially the stuff like, you're too powerful, you're too this, men are going to be intimidated. Maybe you shouldn't do that podcast, that course, that speaking gig, that this, whatever. And like, shouldn't be yourself, basically. And now they have a point, because a lot of men are intimidated by a strong woman. But my husband, when I met him, was like, you're my little superstar. You be as big as you want. Like the right person, won't be intimidated by you, or won't be worried about the flaw that you think is the worst thing about you. But anyway, so side note, the story is a longer story, but basically what happened was I had a crazy transformative meeting with a CEO of a very big company. And he challenged me in this meeting, which was so, I think, unexpected. So it got into me. And I was single at the time, running leadership programs for a big nonprofit, which had 320 locations around the world. It was amazing. I was living a dream life career-wise. And I was in this big CEO's, room looking for donations, in a sense, like he wanted to fund this amazing program. So he puts me on the spot and he says, I was warned that he asked personal questions. Because again, by the way, side note, a lot of philanthropists have told me this, that they don't care about the proposal. They care about who you are. They want to see what you're made of, because that's what they really feel like they're investing in. So it's very interesting. So he really just cared who I was. So he does some things to shake you up to see. That was a little bit chutzpahdik. But he said to me, why are you single? And I was like, whoa. And it hit, like, stabbed my heart. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm single. Firstly, it's a really bad question to ask anyone. You don't say that. So don't say that to anyone. But I just said, I don't know. And he kept drilling into me. No, why are you single? Why are you single? I said, I don't know. He says, you know what you have to do today? And this was literally straight from God to this guy, because this guy didn't know me. And he said, you know what you have to do today? You have to go home and you have to accept. I said, accept what? And he didn't know this, but this is exactly what I was wrestling with inside myself, is that I believed in a higher power. I believed in God. I believed that there was a reason for everything and blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't accept that I was single. Like, I had given up so much to do the right things in life, and I thought I was doing really good, and I felt like I was being punished. I felt like I was being betrayed. I felt like I was being abandoned, and I couldn't get over that. And I had a strong will. Like, I have a very strong will. And I thought that I was right on some level, that God had let me down. And this guy didn't know any of that. And he said, you have to go home today and accept. And I said, accept what? He said, you have to go home today and you say, I accept that whatever you choose is the right thing, to the higher power. Like, to say that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you shouldn't expect that you're going to be single. You should expect you'll get married. Of course, because like that is the thing that is like a thing that if you want that, that's a good thing. It's likely to happen. More people get married than not if they want to, blah, blah, blah. But you should accept that whatever God decides, even if worst case scenario, God were to decide that for the best interest of you, that you should stay single for some reason, like in this lifetime. And we know that we find out in the next world, as soon as we die, we find out why everything happens. We do get to find out, but we won't know while we're here. But let's say, God forbid, that is the thing that God decides for you, that you could accept it. Doesn't mean you have to be happy about it, but you could accept it.
Wow.
And he hit the raw nerve that I was wrestling with, and I burst into tears. And I started bawling in the meeting. And the other two, there's two other guys in the meeting who just looked down in their laps and was like swallow me now, It became a private
Men
counseling.
Don't know what to do.
Men they don't know what to do.
Crying.
Crying. And this is so unlike me. I don't cry like that in meeting. Like it's just not like me to do that. And I really hit a raw nerve. And I said, I try. Some days I trust and some days I don't. Some days I can accept. And he said, he said, all God wants is our acceptance, which is surrender, right? Wow. Trust and surrender. And he said, do it and watch what happens.
Wow.
You can't do it for that reason, but watch what happens when you truly surrender. Wow. And he said, and I was like back and forth. And after the meeting, he said, like the whole meeting was about my personal problems after that. And we didn't talk one thing about the initiative at all or the program. And he gets up, he had to run to 2 meetings with banks on either side of us in different offices at the same time. And I was like, he goes, I like her. She's real. I want to work with the organization. Because I was crying. And I was just real with him. I was having a real conversation. And the other chief of staff was like shaking his head, laughing afterwards, saying that was the best meeting we've had in 2 weeks. And like, that was the meeting, That's so cute. But anyway, it didn't finish there. I went home and I really was weeping for like 3 days. He really ripped off something in my heart that I hadn't accessed before. And I didn't know why I hadn't accessed it, but I was in touch with myself in a different way. And I sat there and I did a meditation and I really said, why can't I accept? Like why? Because I know there's a higher power. I know the higher power loves me. I see it in every other area of my life. I really do feel very connected and spiritual, and I would talk to God a lot. And I said, but why can't I accept? I really couldn't accept that what he was doing was for my good on some level, what God was doing. And then a little voice came back and said, because you're judging yourself as a failure. That you think you're a failure. Yes,
and
exactly.
You felt like there was something wrong with you.
I felt like there was something wrong with me because I was single and I'm judging myself that if I don't get married, I'm a failure. And that means I'm unworthy, which I didn't realize consciously that that's what I was doing. But I was carrying this feeling of feeling judged, but I was judging myself because really other people can judge you, but it can't affect you if you don't judge yourself. So I hadn't realized how much I had power over that piece at all. I just felt reactive to other people's judgment naturally. And I know this is what you speak a lot about too in your coaching.
Everything I love.
And me too. And so in that moment, I turned to God and I just said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I am not judging myself anymore. Regardless of marriage, I am not judging myself. I'm good. I'm good enough. I'm lovable. I'm like, it's something really deeply shifted that I haven't, like, you can say that to yourself a million times, like an affirmation, and it doesn't it's not from the heart. Right. And this really went into the heart. And I just said, I really just had such a real conversation with this higher power, with God. And I said, this is not what I want. I do not want to be single. I said, but if it's what you want and you think it's the best thing for me, I will accept it. I won't like it. You don't have to pretend to like it. Like, thank God, right? You don't have to pretend to like it. But I said, it will break my heart. In fact, I said, but I'll accept it and I'll make the best of it. And I was bawling. Even as I say it, I feel the lump in my throat. Like I was bawling at the time. And the next day my husband was suggested. Literally the next day.
That is crazy.
It was crazy. The most mind-blowing thing I think I've ever experienced was waiting that long and then choosing to accept that I'm not in charge of my life.
Wow. Can I go as far as to say this? Because it's weird. We have similar paths in a sense and obviously very different. But I think that something that you and I might have done, not even just for meeting our Basharets, but also for our businesses and helping other people, thank God, is we took probably the hardest thing maybe that happened to us and used it as an opportunity for growth in a sense, right? So for me, my parents' divorce was the thing that broke my heart as a kid, going through life, was experiencing the ground beneath my feet that brought me into this world, the foundation of my life, be ripped out from underneath me. And it was miserable and painful and unfortunately still is once in a while. But I took it, and at first I was going to therapy, like we said, and I was blaming it. I said, okay, let me look back and say my parents did X, Y, and Z to me. These situations happen to me. So that is the reason I am the way I am. And let's keep talking about it and keep talking about my problems, keep talking about my problems, keep talking about my problems, right?
And feeling victimized.
Oh my God. It was, and I there was a problem with me because I was the person who came with baggage and I didn't want my baggage. I wanted to throw it away, right? But then one day I decided when I met my life coach, you know what? I'm going to hold on to these bags. They're going to be my bags and there's going to be some gems in these bags for me to use in my life. And it's actually, I think it's a lot. My Judaism comes from later in life, so names and stuff are harder for me, but there's a story about Lot, I believe, and he's leaving the town and they say if you turn around and look, you'll turn into salt.
Yes.
But you can take a bag of salt and salt it over your life. Am I correct?
I don't know, you put it, I don't know.
Something a bag, but the way that I saw that was if you look back at your life and stare at it and say, these are my problems. This is the reason I am the way I am. This is what happened to me, not for me. You'll turn into salt. But if you can take your past with you and be like, no, I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to grow. I'm going to make the world even a tastier because salt makes things tastier.
Yeah, it enhances.
A tastier, yummy life, then you don't turn into salt. Nice. You keep walking forward. So what you and I potentially both did from your story of what I'm hearing is that we took our hardest thing and we accepted it. And we said, okay, this is where I'm planted right now. This is where I've been planted. Not only is this where I'm planted, but God has specifically chosen to plant me here for my best good and for the best good of the world. So not only can I accept it, even if it hurts and there's emotion to it, because emotion isn't bad. Sad feelings aren't bad. They're just sad. And it's hard for us to accept a sad feeling, but it's not bad. It's sad. So it might be sad, but I'm going to accept it. And if I love a greater power, if I love the universe, if I love God, because life is here to love, then I'm not only going to accept it, but I'm going to try to love it in its pain and its hardship. So for me, I look at my parents' divorce and I say, listen, I feel bad for a marriage ending. That's very sad. It is painful for me, especially my little inner child. And would I, if I were to write the book of my life, change it? Maybe not, because it made me who I am today. It took me on an unbelievable journey, meeting you in Israel, coming back to New York, learning from you, meeting amazing people along the way that led me to Jonathan. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't be married to the best guy ever, who we love, even though this is called You're Allowed to Date Your Husband. We love him. And I wouldn't be helping women get to that place of loving yourself and loving your life and accepting and growing and feeling empowered and amazing. So it seems like that's what you did in taking this thing that still has a lump in your throat, because it is painful. But again, there's growing pains. We go to the gym and we feel pain, but that's a good pain. Giving birth is painful, but it's a beautiful pain. Like, this pain had to happen for you to end up with your husband and to help other people. And that's beautiful. So
can I add a little word of Torah in there?
Please.
We can speak
my
some
favorite
Torah.
thing ever.
Okay. So there's the word in Hebrew for test is nisayon. Nisayon is any test we've ever gone through. And often that's the biggest test, as Remy's saying, that give us our meaning and our purpose, right? So, but if you look in the Hebrew, this is wild. That's why I love Hebrew, even though I don't speak it fluently. Nisayon comes from the root nes. Nes means miracle.
Yes, I knew that actually.
I know, that's why I was going to ask you, but then I didn't want to put you on the spot in case you didn't. Nes means miracle. So when we look at a nisayon, it's like a miracle to get through the ordeals that we get through. It feels like a miracle to get that we survive things, right? I also lost my dad when I was 17. I had other things that I'd survived before this one, right? So we it's a miracle that we get through it ourselves. And then when we get through it and we work it through, and then we can give back in the very area that we transformed, we become a nes. A nes is also the same exact word as miracle is flag or banner. So we become a banner to the world in that very test.
Oh, wow.
So it's hidden in the word nisayon, test. Whatever test you're tested in. Number one is you're going to get through it. It's a miracle to get through it, and you'll be helped through it. And then you have the opportunity, not everyone has to do this, but you have the opportunity then to give back and be a flag or a banner to the world in how to get through that journey. Wow. Which you see, God forbid, like kids die of leukemia, the parents start a leukemia foundation. Like any good thing in the world often has a tragic story behind it.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So anyone experiencing any adversity or tragedy or whatever, know that you're in a journey, and it's about building yourself as you get through that. And then the step 2 is the ability to give back and help other people through that same exact journey.
So my question is, because you said that your first program that you did when you made this deal with God, this beautiful deal, was there's nothing wrong with you, okay? And I think what people typically end up feeling is that their biggest hardship, you being single at a time that you didn't want to be single anymore, no longer wanted to be single. So the thing that hurts us the most is what makes us like something wrong with us. What's the word? It's like
feel flawed.
Yeah, feel flawed. Like the thing that like, you know, if a lot of women might go on dates and the guy doesn't text them back and they feel like they're too much, or they feel like they're too sensitive, or they feel like something. There's a reason that something's wrong with them, or something's wrong with where they've been planted in their life, with their family, with the this, with the that. So how do you turn that feeling like something's wrong with you into this opportunity for miracle, banner, but even far, like, so at the place where people feel the lowest, most down, like something's wrong with them, how do you shift that energy?
Well, it's the mindset. It's the premise that you think something's wrong with you. It's coming from that mindset to begin with, that there's something wrong with me, rather than it's just not the right fit. If someone else has something wrong with you, or says something, or doesn't respond to you, it just means it's not the right fit. So rejection is a redirection, as opposed to a rejection of you not being lovable or worthy. Rejection is, I have clarity that you're not my wife this lifetime or husband. Like I have clarity. That's it. I have clarity that this person is not my husband or wife. It's about a rejection of the role, not of you. So even the first step as a mindset step is really important, because people are like on the lookout for what's wrong about me. And they're looking for the things that were told to them or they felt were wrong about them since their childhood. And then they find it, because we have a reticular activating system, which is like a radar in our brain subconsciously that scans people and experiences and circumstances for situations and experiences that will match their already imprinted reality of themselves based on whatever wounds and whatever things you had growing up. And then when you find something that could be similar, you go, aha, I knew I was unlovable. I knew I was unworthy. And then it reaffirms and concretizes that belief system. And then you go out on the lookout for it again. And until you confront yourself, until you confront that little part of you, and it's usually just a little part, because as you're older and wiser, you're not just a little kid who's hurt. That's just a part of you. It's not bad. It's just a part of you. And what happens is, the reason it's hijacking your life is because you're not looking at it. You're not shining light on it. You're not connecting to it. You're judging yourself for it. And there is nothing that keeps you stuck in that mindset more than judgment of yourself or any kind of self-rejection. So self-rejection really comes in different forms. There's suppression. We push down the feelings. I don't want to feel them. They're bad, so I'm going to push them down, or I just don't feel they're comfortable, so I don't want to feel them. There's escapism, which we all do all the time, right? With food and Netflix and shopping and whatever else.
That's what I did back in the day.
We all do this, especially women, especially with food. Food, Netflix, shopping, workaholism, and you can turn anything into an escape if you really want to. And then there's judgment. Judgment also keeps you stuck. So as soon as you're in judgment mode, you're in stuck mode. And if you can just think that if I'm judging myself, I'm going to stay stuck. And so we want to get into a mindset of compassionate curiosity. Oh, isn't that interesting that I'm feeling judged right now, or I'm feeling unworthy? Where is that in my body? Again, I work with the body, because the body reflects the subconscious.
Beautiful. So what would you see in the body that would come up?
So typically I'll ask a woman, so I just feel so bad because I got rejected. I just feel terrible. What's the point of going on this, speaking like this? And I'll say, where do you feel that in the body? Where do you feel that rejected feeling? Oh, it's a constriction in my heart, or it's a knot in my stomach. That's a very common one. So great. Let's go talk to the knot in your stomach. They're like, what? What do you mean? No, I want to analyze, like, where did that come from? No, it's not going to help you. You can spend years, I'm talking years, analyzing why your patterns happened, where they come from, who caused them, and what is it about you, what your issues are, and absolutely feel the same way. It will not change a thing. And this is the biggest lie that people don't realize. No one's doing it intentionally, but it's the biggest lie in the therapy world. Again, having come from that world and seeing there's a lot of good there, but there's a lie that if I understand why my issues are there, I'm going to be able to change them. And you cannot. It doesn't even matter why. So that's why I can help people in a much quicker period of time because they don't need their whole life history.
Yep, exactly.
And you can go to someone and say, if you say go to a new person, they're like, I don't want to go through it all again.
Exactly.
I don't want to go through the whole story. You don't need to.
Yeah.
The story doesn't help. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to work at this level, then that's all you got. That's all you've got to work with, right? Because 20% is the conscious mind of how we operate. 80% is coming from the subconscious, which is under the surface of things we're not aware of. 80. So even if you get the best therapist that's working at the conscious talk therapy level, you're only working with the 20%, right? So 80% is in the body. The body reflects the subconscious. So if you want to know more about this, there's a great book, The Body Keeps the Score. Right, fabulous book. It's really popular, but it highlights all of this. And there's lots of books. Sarno method. There's lots of different methods that talk about the body expressing somatic psychotherapy, which is what I trained in after psychology because I realized psychology alone for me didn't feel enough. And I had some transformative experiences with somatic work. Actually, in my early 20s, I share this. I haven't shared it much. I started noticing I was feeling more and more anxiety. My dad died when I was 17, and about 23, I started feeling out of nowhere, just anxiety out of nowhere, and it even kept me up at night. And I was like, this is bizarre. Like nothing happened in my life when I was 22, 23. I just suddenly felt anxious. I was studying psychology at the time at university in Sydney, Australia. And I knew enough to know this is like an anxiety thing brewing. Like this is now becoming a little bit, I was a bit nervous to go to this event or that event because I was worried I'd feel anxious or I started feeling claustrophobic. And I was like, this is not good. Like, what is going on? There was nothing really to do. Deep breathing. Okay, that's lovely for managing it. But I wanted to look at why is this happening? Not why, but like why in the sense of like, firstly, where is this coming from is a better question. And what can I do about it? So I went to this course that was had a lot of somatic work in it. I'd never really heard of somatic work. I was a bit suspicious about it. But it was like a personal development weekend workshop, in Australia. And I thought I'll go and I'll be curious. And it was this approach. And I did a couple of body exercises there that were about tuning into the body and seeing what's there and talking to it and blah, blah, blah. And I had such a profound release of grief from that I didn't even know was buried deep inside my body, right? Because I'd obviously grieved on some level at 17 for my dad. But at the same time, I hadn't finished that grieving and I didn't realize. It was trapped in my body, but I didn't realize. And the anxiety is a signal to show you that something's wrong, something's trapped. But I didn't know that either. So the anxiety often is a signal. It's often a symptom. And we go and treat the symptom and we don't treat the root, right? So I went to this workshop and I did these exercises that were similar to what I do now. And I had this profound release of grief, like a cry that came out of me that I've never heard before. And it was I was shocking and they were really encouraging me. There was someone with me encouraging me to let it out. I'm not kidding you. My anxiety disappeared overnight.
Wow.
Overnight. It was gone. And I went, what the heck is this? I need to learn more about this. Okay. And so that's why I went and studied somatic psychotherapy. And I now integrate that in all my work. And not only that, but the course I've created is because I believe you can teach the average Joe Blow person that's not a therapist to do this for yourself, because this is just in you. This is how we operate. This is how we function. We're literally treating ourselves with just like part of our system, like from the head up, and I was very intellectual and very shut off in my emotions. So I had to learn how to connect with my feelings and, like you said, allow the feelings to be there and not be scared of them and look at anything inside of me. And as it's being curious about it, like, oh, that's interesting. What's that feeling about? Or if that feeling could speak, what would it say? And letting it out. And so that's what we do. So we'll go and speak to, let's say, I'll think of an example to give you. I was dealing with a client recently. She had this rejection feeling, but it was really driving her whole dating. And she often felt rejected. So therefore, before she went out again, she would preempt that she's going to be rejected or if she's scared of being rejected. Not in the stomach. So we went and spoke to that knot. And I said, so let's talk to the knot in the stomach. And I teach you how to bring your attention to that knot and put your attention on that knot and actually be there with it. Because again, what happens is we like to jump up in our head and come up with answers. So you have to just gently learn, again, through some practice together. If I work with someone over time, they'll learn how to do that. It's not so hard. And we'll ask the knot, so, what do you, if you could speak, what would you say? And they're not, this particular person, they're not said, I feel really hurt. And we said, okay, thanks for telling us that. What age is this hurt? And she was so, I said, don't jump into the answer. I said, just like you ask someone, how are you? And you wait for their answer. Ask them not and wait for the answer. Don't try and think of an answer. It's subtle, but that's a big difference. So she learned how to do that. And she said, what age are you? And she like, look, 5 came up into my head straight away. The number 5. Okay, look, great. What happened at 5? She's thinking for a second, what happened at age 5 that she remembers? And she went, no, it can't be that. And I'm like, that's it. What is it? She goes, no, it's so silly. Because again, judgment. What is it? And she said, when I was 5, we used to go to my cousin's place. And I was maybe it was 3. No, it was 5. I used to go to my cousin's place and they would all make fun of me because they saw my underwear. And it was like polka dots on it. And they saw my underwear. I was a little 5 and we were playing and they used to make fun of me. And I felt so incredibly rejected. And I can't believe I'm saying this. She's like, I can't believe this is so stupid. I said, it's not stupid. This is how it felt at 5. And I said, and you stored it away because you didn't know what to do with it. It was too big at that age. And then we did a whole healing process around that of going back in as the 5-year-old and talking to that 5-year-old that she's lovable. And it's these people that are mean. These people are mean and they're kids, but they don't realize, and it's not about you, and you're good and you're lovable, and I'm here to love you as an older, wiser adult, right? Making connection with the parts of ourselves that we've pushed into exile inside of ourselves. We push parts of ourselves into isolation because we don't want to know about it. And it's that hijacks our whole adult life because we have a lot of little kids walking around in adult bodies because they haven't addressed these issues. So she started doing that. She started crying with kind of relief. Relief that she'd felt like she was validating herself for the first time. And I got a message when she finished my course that she went out and she was totally fine going out. And not only that, he rejected her and she didn't even care. And I get these messages that are so excited, like, oh my God, I went on the worst date and he rejected me and I could care less. And it was so empowering, because she felt that little piece of her that used to drive her whole dating, it was no longer there. It literally evaporates. Because as you connect with the parts of ourselves that are shut down inside and ignored, they drive the whole of your life because they want your attention. And then they'll up and up and up that ante with anxiety. So now I'm going to be anxious so that you get, I want your attention, right? Now, yes, it becomes a biological thing in the brain when you have this pattern over time, but there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do to shift it.
So cool. I talk a lot about inner child work because we're these little people that were hurt at one point or another. And now we've just carried that with us into different situations. And I will say that dating brings up a lot of this.
Yes.
Right? It brings up, it's a very vulnerable place, obviously, and we can take it as our worth, but it has nothing to do with that at all. But dating, I think in marriage too, it's not like you walk into marriage and then all of a sudden, all is well, life is a breeze.
Well, I think that's a very, very important point, Remy, to talk about for a sec, because people, when they're dating, feel the goal is marriage or that like finding that person. And then they think, I've made it. And what they don't realize is that the journey of being single is the same as the journey of being married, which is to actualize your best self. So now you have a partner who's going to mirror back to you all your problems and flaws as well. And when you're in marriage, yes, you have the positive of the love and the company, and there's good things obviously that come with marriage for sure. But there's a lot of mirroring and you get to see yourself and you have to put in the work. And so whether you're putting in the work because you need to be single for a while longer, it's, by the way, easier to sometimes work on yourself when you're single.
I say, yeah.
But you don't get yourself mirrored back. So sometimes the downside of that is you don't know like what's going on inside you because you don't have a mirror. So that can be, although I do think that dating patterns are a mirror. So the first time someone comes to me, I'll say, what are your dating patterns? What do you mean? Well, do you get no dates? Do you get bad dates? Do you get dates that are good dates, but you can't form a deeper connection? It's usually one of those 3 dating patterns. And then we work with that as a mirror, right? So what are your dating patterns? Think to yourself now, if you're listening to this, what are my patterns? And it doesn't have to be just dating, but particularly because we're talking about singles and relationships, dating patterns, or what are my patterns in life? Like what relationships do I constantly get into What power dynamics? What bad habits do I fall into even by yourself? Like those are the types of mirror moments, I call them, that we need to be able to look at to be able to grow rather than beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very important point she made. It doesn't stop when you're married. Marriage is a vehicle for your actualization.
100%.
And so it just keeps going. So there's a period you do it single and there's a period you do it married.
100%. And I have so many things that I want to say from what you said, but one thing that's just popping up for me, and it's funny because we use this word towards the beginning of affirmations, and there's so many things like, okay, great. You become aware of your past, okay? So you're saying it's important to become aware of where this is, what happened, and release it, okay? So awareness is one thing, but awareness alone is not going to do anything. Then there's affirmation, saying like, I am worthy, I am loved. Great. Yes, you are worthy, you are loved. But what happens if you don't feel it, right? You don't feel worthy, you don't feel loved.
That's the disconnect.
It's a disconnect, exactly. And I think something that's very cool here, like you said too, when we make our identity something, I am the type of person who gets rejected on dates. I am the type of person who only likes guys who don't like me, and the guys who like me, I don't like. Like we put our identity to a certain thing, usually from a somatic thing that we're holding on to in our body. Then the only way we will be guaranteed to see that in our lives is if we keep saying, I am the type of person who this happens to, and I am the type of person who goes this way, right? So I like the saying that whatever follows I am ... comes to find you. Okay.
Nice.
So in a sense, then, yes, that is an affirmation, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to go to the point of where this lives in your body, where this rejection lives, where this unworthiness lives, where it lives. Become aware of it, but then change it. Don't stop at the awareness. The awareness is irrelevant if you're just aware. You want to change it. So, okay, you feel rejected. At this time in my life, I was the type of person who gets rejected. Then, through a form of affirmation, not an affirmation, but now let's shift it to you were not rejected. You are not rejected. You are not the type of person who is beaten down by rejection, because rejection is completely redirection. It is a blessing. Like taking all of these things that happened to you when you were young, that are happening to you now, and shift it from this painful thing that's happening to you into something that's happening for you, because it's a positive thing. It's sending you in the right direction. Like I'm finding that a lot of the things you're saying is like, okay, there's hardship that happens to people, to me, to my clients, to Remy, to you, to all these people. Hardships happen in day to day. Listen, it doesn't stop in dating. It doesn't stop anywhere. Like life will be hard, and to lean into the pain, to not get scared of it, to lean into it. Like I said, like these painful things that come up are notifying you of something. I think about it this way. Like there's different types of pains in the world, right? There's one that your foot hurts. If your foot didn't hurt, you wouldn't know that something's wrong there. So it's notifying you something's wrong here. Let's go look at it. There's pain of going to the gym. You're going to grow and get bigger and get better. But
that we understand, so we can handle the pain. But we like the pain.
Yes, but using these as like emotional versions. So like there's something in my body that feels this tightness. Okay, it's notifying me that something's there. Let me look into it. Another one, there's this new experience and it's super uncomfortable and painful for me, and I don't want to go through it anymore. No. You're growing somehow from that, just like you're going to the gym and you're growing. And then lastly, I would say, and just because I've experienced the giving birth, and like it's the craziest, mind-blowing, like the pain and this experience, that like it's probably the most painful thing you'll ever do. But the more painful it gets, the closer you're getting to like where you need to go. So this being said, we're taking hardship, pain, feelings in the body, loneliness, that you said there's a lump in your throat, maybe there's something there. And we're shifting the energy into acceptance and empowerment to change, not just to be aware of it and not just to accept, but to now move forward and become the version of yourself who you want to be able to accept the right relationship into your life. So in your own experience, you accepted, you like hit a certain point. Do you feel like then you became the version of yourself who is now ready for your husband to come in, and that's when he came in? Like that next step of now you've met him after this like mind-blowing acceptance.
So there's the idea is of acceptance itself creates a bigger vessel. to receive.
Oh, wow. It
So
creates space.
The acceptance is the space.
Because you're not
correct.
Like this.
So the acceptance, open. So it's so ironic because it's so counterintuitive. Because the last thing I want to do is accept that, like being single, for example. But the acceptance of what is, just the acceptance of what is going on, whether it's in your body, whether it's a life circumstance, and not fighting against it, which on some level, that's what I was doing. My strong will was like fighting against it. And that fighting against it, like not accepting and being mad or upset or feeling hurt and betrayed, that's very narrow. It's very small. And when you go into acceptance, you create a very expansive state. And that expansive state, again, from putting on spiritual lenses, that expansive state allows a higher power to give more blessing to you in abundance. It's an abundant state. So acceptance is a state of abundance, and so is gratitude. So if you're not sure, if acceptance is a bit of a stretch, go move into gratitude. Gratitude for what you already have is different rather than looking at what you don't have. What we tend to do is we're so worried about the future that we forget we're okay now. We're so worried about what we don't have yet that we forget what we do have now. And when you shift mindset to what we do have, not just shift mindset, but what would your life be like if you didn't have and list 10 things that you have in your life and really think about what your life would be like if you don't have it. And then you'll feel this warmth in your heart, because the key is we want to feel in the body.
Yep.
We want to feel in the body. So in the heart, how do you feel when you realize you do have this thing that is not owed to you? You're not entitled to it. So that's number one. Number two, I just want to point about the acceptance. We do hear a lot of people say, just accept, just change your mindset, but I find that you can't just move from mindset of feeling terrible to acceptance. You have to practice accepting it to that part of your body that feels that way.
So it's very in the body.
It's very in the body. So if you're feeling like, well, where is that lack of acceptance? Where do I feel it? Where do I feel that hurt, that negativity? That if you really ask yourself, where do I feel it in the body? You'll get a reaction. Some people say tense. I feel tense in my legs. Some people will say, I feel the lump in my throat. Some people will say, I feel constriction or heaviness on my chest. I feel a tightness in my gut. So I want you to put your hand wherever you feel it, and then take your attention to it and just say, like, I accept you. Because you can't practice acceptance with other things, other people, and life circumstance if you're not accepting yourself. There's a little hurt part of you, or rejected, or betrayed, or whatever it is, angry, that feels alone inside of you. And if you talk to that part and say, who's the I? The higher self, right? There's a higher self in us and a lower self in us. There's a soul, there's a body, whatever you want to call it, the terminology wise. But there's a higher self that's older and wiser and more expansive, let's say. That part of you, the adult part of you that is so capable and does so many things, that part can speak to the wounded part, the young little part that doesn't feel okay, and say, I accept you.
I love that.
And that is the first place that we must practice acceptance. I accept you to myself, within myself, to myself. I get people to do a whole soul body dialogue every day with themselves because we want to be able to live from the soul. Again, that's another piece, right? I want to be able to live from the soul. How do I get myself back to soul mode or higher self mode and then go and speak to the parts of me that are a lower self?
So cool.
And then that becomes the first place of acceptance. And then from that place, you start feeling just more solid inside. I don't know how to describe it. People tell me it feels solid, right? It feels more secure. And they're like, oh, rather than, I need more self-worth and security, but I have no idea how to get that. So I'll teach the how-to. How do you get it?
That's the important part, is the bridging the gap.
Bridging the gap.
This is where I am. This is where I want to be. How do you bridge the gap? And it's so funny you say this because I just got back from Joe Dispenza retreat.
Oh, nice.
And it was great.
Was it good?
I say it was great. It was incredible. Life-changing. And I say that, like, when I was there, probably the biggest thing that happened was my soul, my soul, the oneness, disconnected from my body one. And they would have these hysterical conversations. Like, I would start laughing in my meditations because we did 5-hour meditations.
Wow.
They'd get in fights once in a while. And it was like, and now I saw like crazy Remy Joe Dispenza out there, but they would get in fights being like, I told you to listen to me. No, I don't want to do it. But in the body one was typically a younger child, like this cutie pie little child. And then my soul was a very wise one. And I just had a funny experience in Aspen where it was a really cold day and we were skiing and I was like annoyed by something and anxious, or I sound ridiculous when I'm saying this, and my physical body was like, "Wah, I want to go home. I don't like this and that."
Right.
And then my soul body's like, "Hey, sweet girl, you got this thing." And she's like, "You go, girl. You go, girl." Woohoo. Like my soul body and my physical body were having this like hysterical conversation. And then guess what happened? The day where I was anxious because X, Y, and Z happened in my physical body, and my physical body was physically uncomfortable because it was extremely cold and I did not dress properly because I wanted to look cute, not practical. And all of a sudden, I turned this very uncomfortable feeling into a enjoyable experience. And shifting that and having that conversation and doing the inner child work is super important. And I say that like a crying little child, you're never going to be like, get up to the thing, right? You're going to like give it love, a lot of nurturing. And especially for women, this sense of nurture. And you said that you were like, the first thing I had to do was to be curious, compassionate, because that's how you have to deal with a child, and to give it so much love. And I almost see it like a flower, because also rose is like a big theme in my life. And when a flower is like this and like all of the beauty is held inside and it's tight and like that's the place of constriction, and I don't want to feel the things you're making me feel, and you know that place of constriction versus which I should do better, literally in our physical form of opening up and the opening of the heart and letting your beauty shine from inside out, of course. And being ready to receive, and that state of receiving allows for, like you said, the abundance. Another thing that I find interesting is when you're in a state of lack and constriction, you typically are looking at what other people have and what you perceivingly don't have and what you think they do have. And you're like, someone gets engaged and you're like, another one bites the dust and I can't believe it's me again. And I remember back in the day, I was like, well, this friend's going to get engaged to this guy and this friend's going to get engaged to this guy because they're dating them. And I'm left alone, which means I'm going to be 30 and then I'm going to be this. And then I'm going to tell myself this ridiculous story. Meanwhile, none of those people are still with the people I thought they were going to be with. Some of them are married to new people with babies. Some of them are dating other, like the whole thing was crazy, but I was living in a state of lack. If they have, then that probably means I don't right now. And this comes up in business now and it continues in marriage. Oh my God, it comes up. This marriage has this and this, and to have the tools in place to be like, open up to abundance. The more they have, blessing, 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 because there's more abundance in the world. Just living in the state of openness, calm, curious, nurturing, loving, like open state. Does that seem like kind of where you lead your clients and everybody to the state of like,
well, we like comparison is forbidden. Meaning
as thief of joy.
Because as soon as you compare yourself, firstly you're in illusion, because reality is that someone else's experience and what they have and what they don't have has absolutely no bearing or reflection or implication for your life at all. Everyone is judged according to their own journey and their own, where they came from, where they're at now, where they're going, and everyone's is different. So even though at certain places that, we all have in common that we're married, there's pretty much nothing else that's similar. There's so many variables that make up people's lives and who they're meant to be and where they're meant to be going and what your personal purpose is in life and what your personal, we call tikkun, right, which is a correcting. So you cannot possibly compare yourself one little element to the next element. And as soon as I find myself comparing, especially if you're scrolling on Instagram, literally, it's such a trigger for that. I see it as I'm walking down a corridor and there's a door to the left, and that's the door of comparison. And I go into that door and I know that I know where it's going to lead. It's going to lead me to feeling less than, unworthy, feel bad about myself, start getting worried, anxious, whatever. I do not even let myself go in that room. I close the door.
That's brilliant.
And I say, no, I'm not going in there. I know, you know where those pathways lead in your brain. You know where they go. So don't let yourself go there even. As soon as you start comparing, but she, close the door, keep walking, right? And if that voice continues, what if this, what if that? Again, comparison, talking about the future, what if in the future, and then comparing from the past, that whatever happened in my past is going to happen in the future. Those are the three areas I call like the toxic sort of areas that take you out of reality. Because so talking about the past, I haven't been married yet. I've been single so long, so therefore it's not going to happen. That's toxic and not at all in reality. The second thing is, well, what if it never happens? And projecting into the future about what I don't have now and that it's going to happen in the future that way. We have no idea what's happening in the future. You cannot possibly project into the future. And comparison to begin with, even going there at all, takes you out of the world, right? This is a perke avos ethics of our father, that there's certain things that take us out of the world. One of them is that kind of jealousy, right? I think it's anger, honor, right? It's different things take us out of the reality. But if you can guard yourself, which we can set boundaries in our own mind around these things. But once you know that they're toxic for you, just like certain foods might be toxic or you're allergic to certain foods, you just don't go near them. There's nothing to talk about. And I'd love it if everyone listening could just make a commitment to themselves and say, I am not going down that path in my head anymore. That's it. As soon as I see myself comparing, I'm not going there.
Yeah. I would say there's two things that I love that, not going there. The first one would be that in my personal experience, when I start to feel that jealousy or comparison, I know now I'm in Remy lack, which I know now comes from Remy at this age who felt like she was being rejected or abandoned or X, Y, and Z because of what she saw as lack in her life, right? So what I try to do in those moments for myself is move the lack into abundance. And just because I like to have like practical tools instead of comparison, put this in place. So I go to prayer personally and I say, dear God, please give that person 10 times more of what they have. I try to make it abundance. And it's typically people that like maybe aren't my favorite people in the entire world, I'll look at them, I'm like, oh, even they have that? Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. Right? So it's a weird thing, like for people to pray for someone that they don't even like, it's not their sister or their best friend or their mom. It's like this random person that you're comparing to. But for me, that's a tool that helps me get out of comparison and into abundance. The other one is just going back to these little voices in our head. I always say that like it's from Untethered Soul. You have like the roommate who's chatting away, and that's kind of your physical body. It's like blah, 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 telling you all of these things all day long. And sometimes maybe they're helpful. Other times they're super destructive to what we want. And I say it's like a passenger in the passenger seat of my car, a person in the passenger seat of my car. If I ever let that voice become the driver's seat of my car, I am in big trouble. It's going to take me, it's going to be reckless. It's going to hit this, and take me to places I don't want to go. I know that much. But you know what? The voice might be there. It might talk my ear off and like, I don't want to judge it. I can't judge the voice. Like it's there. It's there. I can't like punch it out of my brain. So what do? I say, hey, I see you. I'm going to put you in the passenger seat. You talk all you want. Nice. Maybe I'll put the music up a little bit, put the window down, put my hands out, put my glasses on, and I'm driving the car where I want to go. And you do what you need to.
That's great.
These are my crazy Remy visuals that just come to my mind. But it's true. Comparison, thief of joy. And it's never going to do any good unless you use it to be like, that's what I want. How can I see what they're doing that's working for them to also allow me to get
the pathway,
there?
not the person.
Exactly.
Right.
The pathway, not the what?
Not the person.
Yes, exactly.
The pathway,
their
not the
pathway.
person.
And I love that. So
I want to add something to your, because that's important, what you just said about the voice. And that's such a powerful metaphor that you pointed out about putting it in the passenger seat. And the reason why it's so important to put it in the passenger seat and not to try to shut it up, which is what a lot of people try and do. I can't shut the voices up in my head. I can't shut the negative voice. You can't shut it up because it's going to be there. And not only that, the more you try to shut it up, the more you're engaging with it, and what you resist persists. So anything that you resist internally, like I don't want that feeling, or I want to shut that voice up, is going to get louder. So that's the power of not shutting it up, but letting it be there in the background. It's funny, my visual that works for me is that I imagine that voice like a yapping chihuahua.
Yeah, exactly.
And I walk on by and it's tied to a tree. So it's tied to a tree. It's going, you're this, you're that, you're that. And I just keep walking on by. So it's the same, but it's the same exact. I love that you came up with the same, totally different visual for the same internal mechanism, which is that I'm going to let it be there. I'm not going to shut it up. And I'm going to not give it power.
Exactly.
I'm in a different place.
Exactly.
The higher self.
The power.
It's not giving the power.
And that's, I would say where women, really like when they're single and they're like, it's not happening for me, it's not this. Guess what? That voice might not magically go away. It might if you do somatic work, and poof, that would be amazing. And please go to Jackie for that because I want to. That sounds great. But it might stay there for a bit, and to be like, it's okay. I'm going to accept you. That's how far my acceptance is going to go. I'm even going to accept that voice inside of me who I don't like very much.
Yes.
That voice. I'm going to accept my parents, my life, my this, my that, the voice inside. I'm going to accept it all. Everything. I'm going to surrender and I'm going to open up to it, because that's when blessings are able to gently trickle into your life.
Well, and those voices, when you do that, just totally start to calm down.
Yeah, they do. People will say to me, they're like, well, do you still have this? And I'm like, listen, I dedicate my body to this, my life to this, my everything to this. So that voice might still be there, but it's much quieter.
Yeah. And it doesn't have power.
No. And once in a while, like I was skiing and I'm like, I'm at this person, they're so annoying. And I was like, hey, you, but it quiets down. And how lovely is that once you do this work and you show up and you learn and you minimize, to be able to quiet that voice down and still have it there, but not react to it, kind of just be accepted. So I love it. Out of curiosity, if you were to look back, and I'm just going to have a few little like rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So if you were to look back at your younger single self, what would be the one piece of advice you would give her?
To not judge myself for being single.
Beautiful.
Acceptance of that you're exactly where you need to be, and you're going where you need to go. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Accept yourself, accept life, what's happening, and the judgment, self-judgment.
Beautiful.
Piece.
I love it. What shocks you the most about marriage? What shocked you the most? Anything?
Oh, about marriage?
Yeah.
That I didn't get sick of my husband.
You didn't get sick
of
him?
I don't get sick of his company.
Nice of you. Oh.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Actually,
I remember I kept saying like a year in, 2 years in, 3 years in, I'm like, wow, I like really just like being with you. Like, it's just like so weird that I don't get sick of you. Like, I was single for so long and it's so independent.
Yeah.
And also people kept telling us you're getting married old, so you've got to prepare. The first year is really hard because you've got two lives coming together and you're used to being independent. You're going to have a lot of fights and you're going to have a lot of we were like, when do the fights start? Like,
really? Bravo.
Yeah. No, I mean, not bravo. I think there's a benefit in the fact that we waited so long, and there was a blessing that you don't even realize is building when you're waiting. When you don't get what you want and you're in such pain from the lack of something, that actually gives you something. When you feel lack, it gives you patience. It gives you appreciation. It gives you depth.
It's beautiful.
It gives you such gratitude. Yeah. So that any little thing that was annoying, rather than get upset about it, it just didn't mean anything, because like who cares? It's all about perspective.
And imagine you got married 10, 20 years before and you ended up with someone that every single day drove you insane.
Exactly.
Now you have this beautiful long life ahead of you with somebody who you genuinely enjoy. And I think it's very cool that like part of your journey was to accept yourself and to sit with yourself and to like be able to live with yourself every day. And the minute you hit that point, you met your husband the next day. And now the same thing is a benefit for you in your marriage of like you can sit with your husband and accept him and just be with him every day.
And not just that, but now I get the opportunity to help others in the same pain that I went through, which is that Nasayon piece we talked about.
It's beautiful. So what is your favorite thing about your husband?
About my husband? Yeah. He's unconditionally loving and non-judgmental, which was the thing that I had to struggle with.
Exactly.
I found a teddy bear.
So cute.
I know.
And I love that you're his little star. That's the cutest
thing.
Right,
and he's not threatened.
I love that.
He loves go and be as big as you want. I just always want him to come traveling with me. Like he didn't come this trip, and I was like, "Come." He's like, "No, you go do your thing." Like, so it's also like it just shadows that myth that you have to give everything up to become married as well. Like it's just not true. Your right person for you will be the perfect fit for you. And seeing God's hand, seeing like the divine plan unfold is just unbelievable, because he is definitely my soulmate, and like I definitely did not miss anyone earlier.
Last thing, what are you most excited about this year, in this coming year?
Helping as many women feel all the things we've been talking about this podcast. I'm really excited about getting it to as many people as possible.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And where can people find you and get this incredible work and like actually apply these concepts to their life? Where can they find you?
Instagram is probably the best, Jackie Glaser Official. And yeah, you can DM me on Instagram.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we did. Now go send it to someone who needs to hear it, because we know that dating, relationships, marriage can be tough, but we want to make it less tough. And remember, you're allowed to hate your husband. Whatever you're feeling is allowed. So go send it to a friend, to your sister, your brother, maybe your boyfriend, a husband, whoever needs to hear this, send it to them. And while you're at it, click the follow button, click the review button. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we're so excited to see you in our next episode.